Welcome, everyone, to Episode 5 of Seek, Search, Succeed, a podcast dedicated to helping sales enablement pros find new roles. Today, I'm joined by Jose Gomez, Director of Commercial Enablement at Automotive Mastermind. Jose, thanks for joining, man.
Hey, Jared, how are you?
Doing good, man. It's good to see you guys. It's been a long time.
It has, man. It has. I'm so glad to be able to connect here for the next few minutes with you. Thanks for having me.
Since it's been a long time since I talked to you, I want to take you way back, like to the mid 20 teens. So I met Jose when he was doing sales trading at my very first SaaS sales job. My background was in used car sales. I had no clue what I was doing, and Jose designed the training program and locked me and another guy in a room for like a month and taught us how to sell software. So the best piece of advice that you ever gave me that I still use to this day, I was having a lot of meetings with customers and I wasn't closing any deals. And I went to you and I was like, Jose, what's going on, man? I have meetings with customers. I'm making all the phone calls. I'm putting the work in. No one's buying anything. And you kind of sat back in your chair and you thought for a minute and you said, are you negotiating with these people? And I wasn't. I was afraid to talk about money on the phone. I was just emailing pricing afterwards. And the second I started having conversations about money with the people on the phone before I got off the demo, I started closing deals. So that was like the best piece of advice, man. Do you remember that at all?
Remember that now. It's so funny because you literally took me back to the moment we had that conversation. Like as you were walking through that with me just now, it was like I remember exactly where we were and like just walking through that conversation together. So yeah, I do remember that. And I think literally like 2 or 3 days later, you closed your first deal. You did the dance.
Yeah, shortly after.
Yeah, you did the dance. We had to. You were walking down the. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a good old first closed deal dance. I remember that.
I still have the video on my phone. Yeah. So for those of you that weren't there, there was a tradition at Jose and I's old company where you get your first deal, you had to dance around the office to all we do is every day I'm hustling. Yeah. One of them. Yeah. So you had to dance around the office. So I still have the video on my phone of me dancing around the office. It will never make it to social media. I'll die having never shown anybody else that video.
We're going to play it between this conversation. I thought maybe it would pop up on my right-hand side here. No, it's not. Now we're doing that today.
So before we jump into the stuff I want to talk about today, because I want to get into kind of your training background, some of your sales advice, some of your best practices, but just give people a little background on who you are for those people that are watching and don't know you.
Yeah, so been in the business in automotive for the last 15 years. So I started my career in straight out of high school. I grew up in a home that was very humble, and the opportunity for me to actually step out and really be, take the whole college course or that sidetrack life was not an option for me. So I had to really go to school on my own and kind of, develop that structure with myself. Obviously my parents were supporting me, but financially just didn't have the means to do it. So I did that. And inside of that whole entire life, I was able to join a company that everyone should know. It's called CarMax. And, I started selling cars for them, did that for about, 4 or 5 years, and was very blessed. I thought, that was if anyone has asked me, like, what school did you go to? I always say KMXU, because they had one of the most phenomenal training programs that I've ever been a part of, that I still use some of that content, to this day. And then after, I took a leap of faith in joining TrueCar when TrueCar was first, it's kind of getting going. All of our offices were in Santa Monica. Michael Timmons, shout out to him, was, opened up the doors in Bernie Brenner out in Austin. And I kind of took the leap of faith because I thought, I was very comfortable. I had a good career path with CarMax. And then that's kind of how I took my role inside of software sales with TrueCar. And that ultimately changed my life because, it opened up a lot of doors. And then I met some great people, including yourself, and was able to be in front of a lot of good people and do a really fun job at a really fun company. So I was blessed to do that. In that time, I got married. So I have a beautiful wife. We've been married now for, I hope I get this right, this year will be eight years. And we have 3 awesome kids. I have a 6-year-old son, a 6-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old daughter. That are just the world to me. If you don't see me working for Mastermind and investing my time there, you'll find me at home with them as well. So during that time I had that came around, and then I got to join a company called L2T, did some consulting for them for a little bit. Was blessed to be a part of that group too, because the owners there was a super small, at that time, they're now pretty big, digital marketing agency. And I was just able to learn so much from them. And then now I've been with Mastermind for 6 years, man. So started in sales or service with Mastermind. I'll probably get into that story with you here shortly. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. So
I'm glad you brought up KMXU. I don't know if a lot of people watching this will know about it. Automotive people will, but I have a lot of non-automotive followers too.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Everyone
that's
thinks
right.
of
You
like,
work CarMax as well,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
So
that's
a
right.
lot of people think like enterprise for really good like management training, but CarMax had one of the elite sales training programs. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what you went through when you were new there, how that training program was set up? Because there are a lot of people that watch this that are building new hire training programs. I think people would be interested in the CarMax kind of approach.
Yeah. So, with CarMax, I remember being 18 and having zero. Like I was so funny because the two stories, right? The two initial choices that I had to make a career move was either joining CarMax or going to like a used car sales lot. Like that was my choices. And man, I literally thought for like 2 or 3 days, like which direction should I go? And I am so blessed that I made the decision to go to CarMax, because as soon as you join, you're like, it is like a boot camp. It's like, you immediately met your mentor. You immediately know you're giving this, 6-week program that really talks you through like all the steps of selling a car, right? Because with CarMax, those of you that aren't familiar with it, one of the components there was that you really did everything from start to finish. So you sold the car, you did the pre questions, you did the test drive, you did the financing, you did really everything. And in that 6 weeks, you were really taught how to do that. And at the end, you had like a certification that you had to go through in order to be able to pass. With and say, hey, yes, this person is ready to sell cars, ready to be on the front line, and you really couldn't take ups, do anything until you went through it. But the structure behind it, and even so today, the structure that I've built with TrueCar when I did their training program, and even the program that we're doing today at Mastermind, is really built around that, because it taught me so much so fast. Because you don't want to be, training an employee for 2 months or 3 months, or that just doesn't make financial sense for a business. So being able to take a little bit of that and shortening it up a little bit, but being able to provide that virtual support, the mental support, the field support, right, and ultimately that coaching method of the enablement team has shown is a proof of concept. It works. It worked for them, and it's been very successful for them going back, when I was there, and I was in 2009.
Yeah, and selling value is so big right now, but that was the CarMax thing from day one. Like they didn't negotiate on price at all. The program was all about like teaching you how to sell value from the second you meet someone all the way
Yeah.
through the process, because at the end you had nothing to do. I remember losing deals over a couple $100 where any other car dealership in the world would go, hey, we'll take $200 off, enjoy your new car.
Yeah.
CarMax wouldn't do it.
Now, and whether you got, 750, so I remember my first deal, the customer wanted $700 more on their trade. And I was like, nah, I can't do that. Like that is the number. Like that, what you saw on that screen is what you're getting. And they were like, no, like you're gonna go in and gonna go, get that $700. You're lying. And I'm like, I mean, I really ain't. I'm not. It's like I'm
Nothing I
not
can
gonna be able
do.
to do that. Like it doesn't work like that here. And it's funny because I ended up like 2 weeks later, that was my first deal. They ended up coming back. The value on that car went $500 less. But the deal that they were working on the other guys, it was a complete, just not the right, not the right experience, not the right structure of the deal. So I ended up coming back and buying from me, and even taking a $500 less offer, and still got the deal done. But it was all because of the experience and transparency that we provided for them.
Yeah, and you can call it a shit show. We're not that formal around here. It's totally fine.
Yeah. All right. Good. Now I
Yeah.
know.
So you're in a kind of interesting place. I've spoken on this show to teachers who transition to enablement. We've spoken to a professional actor who transitioned to enablement. You and I both have sales backgrounds and transitioned into enablement. So I'm curious, when you made that jump, I remember when you and I first met, I think was that you had like built that training program as like a pilot. It wasn't even really the new hire program at the time. And you were kind of testing out this training and enablement role back then, right?
I was at TrueCar, yeah. So
Yeah.
we were testing it out. So we were going so fast. I remember, initially it was only 4 of us, right? It was the 4 guys that had an opportunity to come work for for TrueCar, and it was really it. And we really didn't know what we were walking into, because we really, when we put this program together, or when we put this inside sales team, Jared McMahon, I'm sure you remember him. Shout out to him. I'll shout out a couple people today, Jared. I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah, I tag them. It gets us more views. So that's perfect.
That's good. Yeah, good. The people that, throughout this conversation, you'll learn that have played a pivotal role in my life and my growth. So, I can't go without giving him a little bit of credit. But, so Jared created this process, brought us all in. And I remember, man, like, the ultimate goal for that position was just, you're going to sell dealerships over the phone, like the TrueCar concept, right? But we had zero, like, direction on how we were going to do this. Like,
no training, no enablement. There was no decks created. There was none of that.
If you guys watch Wolf of Wall Street, think Wolf of Wall Street, and like, that was just bringing it into the automotive world. And that's exactly what we did for a solid 3-4 months. Like, I remember when we first got the dealership to say yes, like, yeah, I'll sign up. And we were like, oh my gosh, this guy said yes. Like, what are we going to charge him? Like, I kid you not, we put him on mute. We're like, hey, I got a yes here, but we don't know what we're going to do. We're like, just, figure this out. But ultimately, through that, we learned that, hey, we were very successful in doing it. And then we started growing, right? So we started bringing people in almost on a every 2-week basis. And so we needed a training program that really was able to teach them the concept of how to get into to how to engage automotive dealerships. Some that came with background like yours that really didn't have like that SaaS sales background. So teaching that component of it, the objections that you may potentially get. So whenever you were one of the first waves of people that we were able to get through and actually take them through that training program. But, I think it taught them by having that structure, it taught you just quickly how to, at least the 101 way of being able to sell a product over the phone that was very technical. So remember, TrueCar it brought a lot, and the presentation was kind of deep. So it was definitely a trial, but we were pretty successful with it afterwards too.
And so one thing I talk to people a lot about is you don't get promoted and then asked to do a role. You start doing something and then you get promoted because you're already doing the job that you're getting promoted into.
That's such a good point, man. That is such a good point.
So as a seller, like, what kind of things did you do? Because that was one of them. At other companies, how did you move from sales to get people to look at you and say, Jose's not just a sales guy. He has other abilities that we can leverage and cross across the whole team.
Yeah, so that's such a good statement. I think hopefully we can get that. I'm going to write that down when we watch the recording of this, because that's such a good, such truth to that, I think. And so let's talk through that, right? So I think one of the biggest pieces that I was able to do is during the pandemic. So when I was with Mastermind, I was part of a national performance team. And, one of the greatest thing about this company that I'm so happy to represent is the fact that during the pandemic, we did some of the things that most people wouldn't have done, right? So we knew that all the stores, everything was shutting down. All of our people were not going to be in the field. And we are very consultant-based business. So we do everything that we do on our service side and sales side. We're going to be in the field working with dealerships to make sure that they're successful. That's overall the number one goal, whether you're selling it or service, is making sure that whatever we're doing for your dealership, we're going to try to make it successful. But during the pandemic, you couldn't do that because
it was gone.
Shut, of course, yeah, everything was
for who
closed,
knows how
right?
long.
Yeah, so there was no way for us to engage with them. There was no one wanted to go into a store just because the obvious. And so we sat back, and I was my role at that time was a national performance manager, and I was really going across the country and flying in and meeting with stores that needed help with either service to sales. Maybe the technology wasn't working in the best way that they wanted to. Maybe we just provided support with a dealer relations manager, which is a service manager for those of you that are not in automotive. And so, we really just supported that. And when it all shut down, there was a team of four or five of us. And, at that time, our vision was, man, how can we continue to invest into our people and really identify ways to just retrain and reset and recertify everyone now that everyone's at home. So instead of going on the route of, which was a little bit more tougher, which starting to think, hey, there's no way we can keep everyone. There's no way that we can support it financially. Not only did we go back and double down on our people and invest into them and created our team, our performance team, with Ian Grace, shout out to him. That's another guy that's been a huge mentor for me. We developed this 6 pillars is what we call it. And it was a certification program on the 6 most influential pieces of our business and how we were going to go back out to once the doors open back out. How can we be stronger? How can we elevate our knowledge from taking them from middle level players inside of a pillar and taking them to green, right? How can we continue to invest in those people? So we did that during the pandemic and took everyone through, our whole commercial team through that certification process and building that
time
content.
you are, sorry to stop you. This time you're still like in success, right? You're not in a enablement role, you're not in a training role or anything like that.
Yeah, no, at this point, we're not doing any kind of enablement. It's just our national performance team really going into, I mean, our calls, I remember those days. Our day would start at 8 and at 5:30 because we were building this content, partnering with people, partnering with the folks that were really good at it. So we created content that was for them and available for them. So we went and rolled this out. This was one of the initiatives. The second initiative, we created all of our people. So both sales and service became a BDC team. So an inside sales team for dealerships across the country. So we were like, hey, we can't be in stores. So what we're going to do is going to start calling all of your customers and try to get appointments for them to go into the stores and buy cars from the dealerships because the dealership didn't have sales staff. So that's the 2 initiatives that we took. So after doing that, we went through that whole certification process. It was super successful. And it was just super good being able to be that coach, that leadership. And if you know me, Jared, you know that one thing I love to do is coach people and inspire people and just in kids too, because I coach my kids sports and all that good stuff. So being able to do that on a professional level was super, super inspiring. And so after the doors opened back up, everyone went back out on the field. Our ELT team said, hey, we need someone in the role that can really need to continue to do this and do this on a more consistent basis. And that's how the enablement team at Mastermind got kind of started. And so they plugged in like one of the most influential people in my life, which was, his name was Dan Gahn. And he came on board. He called me up and said, hey man, like, listen, I would love for you to be a part of this team. If you have any interest in it. And man, that was really it. Think about it now, it's 2.5 years ago. And it was a great transition.
Yeah, man, that time flies. COVID seems like it was yesterday.
It really does, man. It really does. But it was such a fun, like, I know it was tough. A lot of people went through a lot of things, but Mastermind found a way to make it productive, both internally and externally, which was, something that I'm really blessed and proud of.
And I know a lot of people that watch this show watch because they're looking for a new role and they're trying to transition to something else. The job market's super hard for enablement people right now because so many of us have been impacted by layoffs. If you need a new position, right, and you can't find a role in enablement, what do you think about taking a sales role at a growing company and showing that you can enable other sellers? And like, you think that's a good career path for people that are watching this, or would you do it again, I guess?
I think so. I think when you look at what we do, right, as enablement managers and leaders for companies, is we ultimately are selling a concept to someone, right? Like being able to sell the concept to a team, selling the positioning of a product that we're releasing to the team. You're ultimately doing that. That's ultimately what you're doing. And so I think if you look at it, if you have to go into sales or even the service role, if you're like a customer success manager or something like that, you ultimately are enabling that partner or that person to believe in what you're doing and what you're selling to them, and ultimately sharpening up those selling skills that I think you and I can agree we use this in this role every day, because we're trying to sell the concept of something to our internal teams to make sure that they can adopt, they can buy in to what we're trying to do and how we're trying to position a product that we're releasing.
And it's a place you can stand out because not all great sellers make great trainers or great enablement people. We have a lot of like A players on our team who I ask to help me with trainings, and they tell me, Jared, I'm really good at this, but I'm not totally sure why. I just know that I am, and I just do what I do. What do you think about sellers who are trying to transition to enablement? And if you're maybe not good at that, and you're not good at training, you're just great at selling, which is nothing wrong with that.
And ultimately, you may find that might be the best home for you too. Like if you're really good at selling, right, and you're maybe not good at the other concepts of it, and the coaching and the training that's behind the enablement side. Like so one of the things that we've done on our onboarding process when we're bringing people on is we're identifying field mentors that are really good at what they do in their role, right? And that's one big initiative that we've just in the last probably 90 days, we've rethought, excuse me, the whole onboarding process. And I've led that project here at Mastermind. And one of the things that was important to me is being able to think of CarMax, right, Jared? Because you and I can connect on that. Is you and I have been able to see the virtual support from an enablement, like learning perspective, that mentorship, and then the overall on-field experience and training. So when you thought about, when we looked at the mentorships, like some people may be really, really good at servicing their dealerships, servicing their partners, and being able to provide a product or service that is better than none. But teaching how to do that and being able to say, hey, here's how you do it, might be a little bit of a struggle, right? And we've kind of found that out just in doing this process. But some people are just great at the specific sales aspect of what we do, or just servicing or consulting, whatever that position may be. But the actual coaching and having the patience and the structure and being able to say, hey, here this is how the end goal looks like, but there's a few steps to do it. And it's some salespeople, man, they just want to go right through all the sales steps and get to the end point. But with enablement, you have to have hit stops along the way to deliver what you're trying to deliver.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with the patience part, man. It's tough for me. I'm in that like get this done sales mindset a lot of times still. So I struggle with being patient with people sometimes and following the steps and the project management parts of it.
100%. You do, for sure.
So besides the stuff that you're really great at, like sales training, and you had a big success background in teaching success people, what other type of initiatives does your team work on at Mastermind that's not just like training related? What stuff does the enablement team do there?
Yeah, so we, we have our team is built in from when we look at internal and external, right? So we look at everything that has to do with internal components of product positioning, product releases, training the team, professional development, like all of the monthly training sessions that we do just to continue to reemphasize the releases that we're doing. We have that component. And then we also have the external component, which is led by my counterpart, another shout out, Rob McHugh, who does a phenomenal job at digital or our partner communication. So making sure that, throughout the whole process of us releasing products, or even just anything that's big that might impact the overall customer that is our customer, which is a dealership, they're communicating effectively with them and being able to say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, but also training their staff on how to position the things that we're releasing to them. And so that's kind of the other big piece of our enablement team, is making sure that you're doing a great job at training all of your internal staff to go out to the market and do something, the right way, or being able to position something the right way. And then also making sure that the folks that you're selling this product to also know how to use it and understand it and know that it's coming. So that's the other big component of our team.
That's interesting. So there still is a little bit of like a customer success role underneath the team that you lead.
For sure. Yeah.
That's kind of a cool structure.
But overall, yeah, it's part of our house for sure.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about before I let you go, most people that watch this, like I said, are watching, unfortunately, because they're transitioning to a new role and it's not going so well. You've been at your role for a while now. You've got some good experience across industries. What advice would you give people that are watching this, that are a little frustrated, that have applied to a couple hundred jobs and just aren't getting the responses they want? What's your best advice for staying out there, resume tips, anything you want to share?
Yeah. So I think, there's two big things that stick out, right? Always understand the strength of your network would be the first advice, right? Understand the network in the components and the people that have impacted your life over the course of the last, however long you've been in the career side of your life, right? Whether it's a manager, whether it's a VP that you really connected with, and understanding that they can open doors for you that ultimately may not be that you maybe have not thought of, right? So making sure that understanding the strength of your network would be a big component or a piece of advice, and just reaching out and saying, hey, like there's sometimes that people say, man, I don't want to reach out to Jose because I haven't talked to him in 2 years or a year. Man, you'd be surprised. You send them a quick message and they're so excited to hear from you that all of a sudden it turns into a great conversation and potentially a job opportunity. So that would be the first one. And the second is patience, right? I think that's the biggest thing is I get it. Listen, I have so much respect and so much, compassion for people that are in a situation today that they're looking to fill that role. They're looking to fill, or find that next role, and knowing that everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason why timing works the way it does, right? It's you have to find that right position, you have to write the right spots, and sometimes you may, strike out a couple of times and be able to not find that you may be really excited about a certain role and it doesn't work out, but you'll find out the next, 2 or 3 interviews you do, maybe a role that may potentially change your life. And that's, I've learned that in my career in just the ways that I've advanced, and I'm blessed to be at Mastermind and the doors they've opened for me. But I think that would be my biggest 2 pieces of advice for anyone that's in that state.
I love what you said about staying patient. When I first moved to Austin, I was selling pickles at the farmer's market because I was just needed a job and couldn't find a job. And I was interviewing and I couldn't find the right thing. And I interviewed at TrueCar where I met you. And
Yeah.
Jared McMahon, he mentioned earlier, Jared, if you're watching this, comment below. Jared McMahon came for my last interview and he had no shoes on. And I was a kid that had just moved to Austin from Florida who hated wearing shoes. I grew up on the beach. And I was like, this is the kind of guy that I want to work for. And I remember going home and telling my now fiance, then girlfriend, I have to work at this place. I have to work there. And that kicked off everything. It kicked off software sales. It led me to my next role that then got acquired by Bigtincan. It let me do enablement now. So if it wasn't for that one domino, the rest of them wouldn't have fallen.
All follows, man. It's just that for the perfect puzzle piece, man. It really does. And Jared, I think to this day, he's still not wearing shoes, but I don't know. No, but we love Jared. I think he did great. He had a great project. But look, man, Jared, I'll shout you out a little bit. Like your grind and the work you've put in, have opened up a lot of doors for you. And you do. I've listened to the podcasts that you've done, the podcasts you've done in the last, since you kicked this off, and you're doing a phenomenal job, man. It's all about patience, and everyone puts, the energy, whatever there is out there in the world, is going to put you in the right position if you just learn to be patient. I think that's the ultimate lesson, if I can say anything in my life and share any value out of this. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, if you are watching this and you're looking for a new role, check out our Seek, Search, Succeed guide. I'll link it in the comments below. Big thanks to Jose for being on with us, and we'll see everybody next time.
Sounds good. Thank us, everyone.